So Enlisted has just dropped one of the most major developments that I've seen in a big time, and in my opinion, it is one of the best, and I'm not making this up. This is the quote-unquote weapons and vehicles of the Tigers of Burma update, which will be coming in soon, I believe. That said, in this video, we're going to be talking about what it offers, because there's a lot of stuff that it offers. Some are pretty good, and some are just making you wonder, why is it in this side of the tech tree, and others just makes you very happy. So without further ado, let's get started. Of course, this video has been made possible for the friends at Discord, because almost all the stuff that we've been talking here has been leaked one time sooner or later via the Discord. So if you haven't subscribed or joined the Discord, I highly suggest that you do. But that said, let's get started. Starting with premium squads, we have the T-24. This is essentially a BR-5 weapon. That is essentially the MG-42 for the Americans. Yes, you heard me correct. This is the MG-42 with the Americans. Except for the fact that the weapon's caliber has been changed to 30-06, and the rate of fire is lowered to 670, and it still has a 100-round belt, which, if you know the MG42, we are having a 100-round belt for the MG42, and that's 30-06. That said, let's move on to the next squad, which is the Thompson 7.63. For those who don't know, this comes in with the 113th Infantry Regiment. For those who don't know what this regiment is, this is the 113th Infantry Regiment of the Republic of China. This is a Chinese expeditionary army sent to Burma, which I will talk about later, and this is given the Chinese quote-unquote Thompson that is chambered for 7.63 Mauser with its own 30-round magazine. The interesting part is that this is coming in at Tier 2, and it is a Tier 2 Thompson with a bipod. So, go figure. And yes, if you haven't figured it out, this is the Chinese volunteers who will be fighting alongside the Allies against the Axis. From what I've been told, they will only be fighting against the Japanese, which makes sense historically speaking. But that said, let's move on to what we have in the tech tree. For the USSR, we have the TIS AM600. This is essentially a motorcycle, finally, for the Soviet Union. It has a DP machine gun mounted on the sidecar, and it's actually pretty good. And of course, it's just like a normal motorcycle, so that's that. Moving on, in terms of planes, we have the Tu-2S. This is essentially a very good frontline bomber. It has 6 250-kilogram bombs, which is pretty much more than enough to destroy anything, and if you know what you're doing, which you should, it's gonna be able to clear off any tank via the ground. Also, it does come with 2 forward-firing 20mm Shabak cannons and 3 12.7mm machine guns, so that's great. And finally, for the Germans, we have nothing new except for an MG42. And what's the difference? Well, this MG42 has 100 rounds. It has a bipod and up to 990 rate of fire per minute and a 7.92 by 53 rifle cartridge. If you haven't figured out by now, a lot of people are hyped for this, and honestly, respectively, I am hyped for this, because this is an MG42 that is arguably much better than the MG13 or 15s that you have in game, and it's just very good. And to be honest, a 100-round MG42 is exactly what we needed right now, because in terms of machine guns, the Germans are lacking. So yes, thank you Enlisted for giving us the MG42 100. Moving on, we have the Americans, and this is pretty much the T26E11. This is the Super Pershing, and everyone has been waiting for this, and everyone has finally gotten it. I'm actually almost about to cry because we've gotten it after waiting so long. The frontal armor is 200mm, which is great, and it can withstand shells from both Japanese and German tanks, of course. And of course, it has a long 90mm T-15E1 cannon, which is great. What is also coming for the United States is the Hyde M1944. This is essentially an American quote-unquote assault rifle, although the issue here is that I don't think this is an assault rifle historically, but Enlisted is classifying it as an assault rifle. The design was inspired by the STG-44, but if you look at the gun itself, it looks more akin to the Thompson that is, well, changed. The rate of fire is 920, and it has a powerful, and it has a 30 carbine cartridge, which is good, so that's that. Moving on, for the Americans, we have the RPZ-B43. This is essentially the German bazooka that the Americans somehow get, and this is where I have to go on a tangent, because the issue with the Americans right here is that they have their own M13 recoilless rifle that they can use. If the Germans are going to get the Panzerschreck, which I think they are, with the shield, I highly suggest that they get that. But why are the Americans getting the RPZ-B43 when the Germans have this in their own tech tree? And before you guys say, oh, it's because the Americans don't have an equivalent. They do. It's called the M18 recoilless rifle. This is a 57mm shoulder-fire anti-tank rifle used by the Americans in World War II, and it came in October 1944. So what are you complaining about? My only issue is the fact that we should have gotten that, the recoilless rifle, instead of this thing, because this thing, it's used by the Germans. And let me be honest, I don't think it's a good idea for Enlisted to put it. Because, let's be honest, this thing, although good, I rather prefer a M9 bazooka, because let's be honest, this is gonna have this exact same issue against German tanks. So, that's that. And moving on, we have the Japanese. They get some of the most important updates as of this, well, update. And eventually I'm going to be talking about the Burma map. But right now, let's talk about what the Japanese have. For the Japanese, we have the Type 89K4. This is essentially a licensed copy of the Vickers E machine gun, and this is chambered in 7.3. It has a 79 round magazine and 770 rate of fire, and it is coming in at tier 4, so go figure. Moving on, for the Japanese, we also have the Type 95 Korogane. This is essentially a Japanese motorcycle with a sidecar, and is armed with the K4 machine gun, so once again, go figure. And finally, we have at tier 5 the Chi-Ri 2. This is a Chi-Ri, as I've suggested previously, with its quote-unquote boxy shape, and lacking some armor. To be exact, it lacks a lot of armor, but it has two interesting features. One is the supposed auto-loader, which is technically in War Thunder. I don't know if Enlisted is going to add that, but it also has two guns, a 75mm gun in the turret, and a 37mm gun in the hull. This is an interesting design even for the time, and honestly, while we're at it, it is a pretty good design for the Japanese, especially that we need another tank for Japan at tier 5, and I think the Chi-Ri was a good addition. That's it, without further ado, let's move on to Burma. And from what I've been told, from the image that we've seen with the quote-unquote Tigers of Burma update, we appear to have an image of a new map that is supposed to be quote-unquote Burma. The good thing about that is that we do have something that is almost confirmed to be a new map, although the new map appears to be looking more from Thailand than Burma, so go figure. That said, without further ado, I do think this is a very good update. If I were to rate this update, I'll give it instantly a 9 out of 10, with a little things that are a little bit questionable for me. For example, the first one is the T-24. This is essentially a reverse-engineered MG-42, which, if you're asking me, okay, it's not the end of the world. But the other thing is the fact that you do have the RPZ-B43. This, for me, is kind of a sour taste because the Americans have the M18 recoilless rifle. Why would you be giving this, a German weapon, to the Americans? So, yeah, that is a problem for me. Without further ado, that is all it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord. I am actually pretty hyped for the dev server, in which I think Enlisted is going to give us. So, that's that. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.